And there it goes.
Can I get a sausage, egg, and cheese on an everything? Can I get an egg and cheese on a croissant? Can I get a large iced black turbo? And a medium hot dark roast black turbo.
Yes. If you know, you know. Next up, BJ's. This parking lot is hella full at 9 a.m. On Peppers. Let's go. So first things first, Coleman camping propane tank. Where do you think that's going to be?
This side.
Awesome. So now next, water and ice. Well, ice is optional, but water definitely. We just got 2 packs of water and our bread situation is on fleek. And we are ready. Hello, hello. Okay, so I have to quickly portion these sausages out into my freezer safe bags. I have compostable bags. That's exclusively what we use in this house. We do not use single-use Ziploc bags. And then the chicken thighs, a 6-pack at BJ's is about 11 bucks, I think it is. Let me see if I flip it over. What does it say? Does it say? Yeah, $11. So these come in individually wrapped portions. You can just take out the one that you want, and each one comes with 3 to 4 thighs, aka a perfect portion size for our family size. This is all of the extra overflow or pantry storage options that we purchased at BJ's today. So we got a bunch of extra olive oil because we're running low, some peanut butter to make sandwiches if we lose power. What are these? Entertainment crackers? Entertainment crackers. These are really good. They come with 3 varieties. The original are my favorite, but comment down below if you've had these and which one you prefer. This is a bunch of Velveeta mac and cheese. Again, if we lose power, we'll have them. Pop-Tarts, same thing. Nutri-Grain bars, same thing. And now it is time for chopping wood. We are uncovering our wood stock here, and Jens has started to chop that up. So I'm gonna quickly prep the food, and then I'll run outside and help him just to make it a little bit quicker. Got the laundry running, and we'll probably be running it all day long until every bit of laundry, sheets, and coats have been washed because they're covered in rock salt. And then over here is where we have our propane stove, like a camping stove. And we have 9 propane tanks and a coffee percolator. So that will give us about 9 hours of high cooking time. And I doubt we'll need more than that. So after prepping the food, I brought the overflow downstairs into our pantry area. This is a temporary area until we finish the kitchen. And then I went outside and helped Jens chop that wood. We are still very much new homeowners. Even though we've lived here for about 4 months, everything is still pretty new, meaning this is our first winter in the home. We weren't exactly sure what to expect, but we have lived here long enough, for me my whole life and for him most of his life, that we knew more or less what to expect. That is why we cut enough wood to last us about 2 to 3 days, we suspected. So by 11 a.m. on Friday, we had this area and the area in the sunroom filled. All right, we're done. Hopefully this will hold us. This is the interior wood. This is the exterior. And just as we finish, we've got some turkeys on our property. Check it out. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About a dozen. A baker's dozen turkeys. So now that we spent the morning preparing for the storm, I really needed to get back to work. If you're new to this channel, I am a biomedical researcher. That's me making a discovery that I thought was super important and had to follow that trail. But as a researcher, there's about half the time that I need to be in the lab and the other half where I can work from home. So I changed my plans for Blizzard Day or pre-Blizzard Day, and I did as much as I could from home so that I could have the morning to do all of the running around that you saw us do, which was to secure the most basic necessities for a storm: gas, cash, food, water, heat source, and something to heat up your food with. So this is me on a Zoom call, and it's just a standard half day. I'm wrapping up here, and then at that point, we're going to start doing some meal prep. That is something that we always need in a storm. All right, it is 5, actually, it's almost 6 o'clock, so we're going to start cooking. These are all the leftover fruits we had before we went shopping this morning, so I'm going to throw them all into a crisp or a cobbler type of thing. I like to use oats, and this one is almost out, so I'm going to use this one up. I'm going to use this back one, which is brand new. Basically everything here. If you want the recipe for my crisp, because I pretty much use the exact same proportions of things, I just change out the fruit every time. It just depends on whatever I have on hand. So if you would like that, you can go to my Instagram at Cooking with Keelani for that recipe. The second thing we're going to do is some delicious chocolate chip cookies. The Crisco butter flavored shortening has a recipe on the back that is outstanding, like straight up chef's kiss. It's definitely not healthy for you by any means, but this is a special circumstance where I'm about to be hit with a storm and I want a little bit of comfort food on hand, and that way I can just put it in here. If we want to snack on something, we could just pull it right out. So chocolate chip cookies. Oh, and I'm making my own brown sugar. If you didn't know this, I was in my 30s before I realized that brown sugar is literally just sugar with molasses. It's a 1 cup to 1 tablespoon ratio, respectively. So if you want like a medium brown sugar, actually, let me show you. I'll skip ahead and show you here. This is a brown sugar that we made. See? So you add about a tablespoon of molasses to about a cup of sugar, and then you add more or less depending on what you want, dark sugar or light brown sugar or what have you. So I'm going to make the brown sugar for this using our organic cane sugar, and that will be the cookies. And then for dinner, I'm going to make some shepherd's pie. Oh, I forgot to pull out the frozen veggies, but I have like the frozen mixed veggies that you can use in a pot pie or a shepherd's pie. These are all the potatoes we have left, and you can see that they're getting soft. So we're going to use this for the shepherd's pie. This is ground turkey. It calls for thyme and parsley and rosemary, and it also calls for Worcestershire sauce, but we don't have any on hand, so I'm going to make it. So that's what all of this is for. And yeah, I mean, time is of the essence here, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So what I'm doing right now is I am peeling the potatoes for the mashed potatoes that go on top of the shepherd's pie. I want to get that going right away so that I can focus on the other two things while those cook for about an hour. Now I'm cutting the pears and the apples for the crisp, and the way I cut these is kind of unorthodox, but in general I like to cut these types of fruits like so. I don't really need a peeler or a spiralizer to get the skin off. This is a super slow-mo shot, but it takes almost no time to peel it this way. So anyway, that's just how I do it. Now I'm going to start the Worcestershire sauce. So it starts with about a half a cup of apple cider vinegar. And then we get about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of water. That's just plain water. About 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, a tablespoon of brown sugar, which I made myself, some black pepper, some cinnamon, not really measuring, but I'd say anywhere between a quarter teaspoon to a half a teaspoon of each. This is ground ginger, this is onion powder, and then we've got the garlic powder. You cannot forget the mustard powder. I think that kind of gives it a nice strong base. So you just mix that really well, and then we're going to set it aside. So our potatoes are looking spectacular, and now we're going to move over to the crisp. I added about a half a cup of regular organic cane sugar and a half a cup of all-purpose flour. I added some cinnamon and stirred, so that is going to be the base. Now I'm making more brown sugar. If you didn't know, brown sugar is just regular sugar and molasses. It's literally that simple. And this jar of molasses was about as expensive as a small bag of brown sugar. So I am never buying brown sugar again. Let's just say that. Right now I'm making the crumble top, and I always like to use oats. It adds a little bit more fiber into an otherwise very sweet and not very healthy dessert. So anywhere I can add nutrition, I try to. Adding about a half a cup of my homemade brown sugar and some flour, and I'm going to add a mixture of melted butter and coconut oil. Again, that's only to add some more nutritional value. You can use all butter or all coconut oil if you want. None of this really needs to be gluten forming or binding or flaky. It's just going to melt and get very toasty and very delicious. So you can see I put all of that into a buttered pan, spread the topping on top, and now I'm moving back over to the shepherd's pie. The onions and the garlic are going to be mixed in with the 1 pound of ground turkey. As I prepare this, I will mix it in to the meat while it is still raw, and then they'll cook at around the same rate. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil just to keep it from sticking to the pan. And I'm also adding a little onion and garlic powder, as well as a few herbs like rosemary, thyme, and parsley. So my fiance will not stop talking about this shepherd's pie. Can I just say it's a few days later and he still keeps talking about it. So I think what really set it off was the rosemary. So these are the things I always put in my mashed potatoes. Heavy cream or a milk substitute like almond milk or coconut milk, sea salt, parsley, butter, and cheese. Okay, that might be too much. This is about 2 tablespoons of butter and enough heavy cream to make things happen. Parsley. And finally, just a little bit of salt. Not a lot. Now, before we take the potato masher to this, for the love of God, do not forget about your ground turkey. And now we mash. You really want to get to know each other in the pot. Office reference. If you know, you know. All right, well, I'm just going to taste it real quick to see if I need to add anything more before I continue to mash it, but it's like 80% of the way there. Let's see. Okay, the mashed potatoes are done to perfection. Come on, that almost looks like box mash. Can we talk about it? So now it's time to really whack up the heat over here and get this ground turkey caramelized before we cook it off with some tomato paste. I'm going to add a little bit of red wine just to add a little beef bourguignon type feel to it, because traditional shepherd's pie is made with lamb. We're doing ground turkey because that's what we had in the freezer that I defrosted. So I really want to add more of a stronger flavor to it. So I'm going to do some red wine. I don't have beef broth, so I'm going to use some chicken broth. Again, just use what you have. It doesn't have to be exact, you know? That's part of cooking, is just experimenting. And actually, I should say, that's part of home economics, is just using what you have in the house instead of spending 10 or 20 bucks every day to buy new ingredients when you have similar but not quite the same ingredients in the house. It doesn't make any sense. Just feel comfortable in the kitchen. Don't be afraid. Go after it. Could I even call myself a Puerto Rican if I didn't add this? I don't think I could. I might be disowned. Just kidding. My parents love me very much. We are opening a can of tomato paste. No, not like this. Like this. This is how it's done. If you don't want the top to fall into your food, you don't want to fish it out and have any gross remnants from the outside of the can on the inside of the food, you open it like that. I spoke too soon, that wrapper came off, but still, look how cleanly that came off. So again, not like this, like this. Now a lot of you would probably stop right here with the ground turkey, but not me. We have a fond going on right here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn this off for a second and cover this up. What I can do is add a little bit of liquid to release it, but I actually want the ground turkey to caramelize just a touch more. So what you do is you turn it off and you let it sit on the areas with the fond for about 10 minutes. What happens is the moisture from the meat seeps into the fond and it releases from the pan. So I'm just going to turn it off, leave it for about 5 minutes. As soon as that fond starts to release, I'm going to add the tomato paste. I'm going to cook that off for about a minute, and then I'm going to add the homemade Worcestershire, a splash of red wine, and some chicken broth. While the ground turkey rests, I'm actually going to follow this recipe right here on the Ultimate Chocolate Chip Cookies. And I'm going to beat these together. It's been resting for about 3 minutes, so I'm gonna get as much done as I can in 2 minutes on the cookies, and then I'm gonna go back to the ground turkey. Almost forgot the homemade brown sugar. I mean, why ever buy brown sugar? Look at this. Seriously. All right, let's see how this is looking. Yep, you see it coming off? I'm not rubbing hard, I'm just one-handing it because I can't hold the pan, and it's coming off. So I am going to whack this heat back up. Let's do maybe medium-high, and let's add some tomato paste. Let's add some chicken broth. And see, you want to get all that fond up. It's not burnt, it's flavor. We are pretty much right where we want to be. Look at this. I mean, it's all scraped up. It took no effort whatsoever. The bottom is completely clean, but it's nice and thick. So I'm going to go ahead and add a splash of this red wine. It's a good wine. I know some people use cooking wines that they don't like to drink. I would drink this. I do drink this. And let me get my Worcestershire. So I just stirred it up a little bit, and I'm going to add a couple tablespoons, not too much. And we're going to let it simmer on medium-low. So let's lower this to like right between 3.5 and 4. And I'm just going to let it go for like 10 minutes. Can't rush perfection, guys. You really can't. But look, even with that extra liquid, it's still so delicious looking. The sauce is nice and thick. I added 0 thickener, just the tomato paste. And it's got that drag. If you can drag and a sauce stays separate like this, that's usually a good consistency. So that's a good sign. I'm probably not going to let it go for too long because I don't want it to burn. So let's say maybe a couple minutes max. All right, so while that's simmering on low, let's mix our dry ingredients. We have flour, salt, and baking soda. A 1 and change, maybe half of that, right? Yeah, it's about 1 3/4. Listen, I don't follow the rules, okay? You are the boss of your own everything. 3/4 teaspoon, that's about there. And salt, we want a teaspoon. Okay, how about there? You see what I mean? Look how freeing that is. Look how free I feel. Look at me stirring away with 0 regard. Fun and fancy. This is how cooking should be. All right, we're about halfway there.
So I'm sure you might have noticed, but we have a very unique taste in music. Basically, everything goes in this house. It'll jump from country to rap to metalcore to Zydeco. I mean, anything goes.
All right, so this is definitely done. And you know how I know? Because when I drag, the sauce doesn't move in even a little bit. Usually that drag is good for sauces like bechamel, a cheese sauce, a sauce that you're adding to something else. But with this, when it's going to roast in the oven and possibly get even more liquidy once I add the frozen veggies and the mashed potatoes on top, I want to drag it and see that sauce move not even a little bit. So this is the perfect consistency. Let's check on our crisp. I'm sorry. Food Network, anyone? Look at this. It's amazing. And let's see underneath. Yes. This is going to be delicious. And I just pop a lid on this. This Pyrex dish comes with a lid on top. And I pop it in the fridge and we just eat this throughout the week. All right, time to assemble our shepherd's pie. I put some butter at the bottom because sometimes even when I spray the pan with olive oil or avocado oil, I might still get some burnt bits around the edges at the bottom. So I just buttered that and then I sprayed the rest.
Considering that this isn't a traditional shepherd's pie, I think it might be more appropriate to consider this a sort of low-fat cottage pie because it uses ground turkey instead of beef. But in general, I have made shepherd's or cottage pie, whatever you want to call it, with beef or turkey, and they're both great.
All right, it's ready to bake.
I'm sure this doesn't need to be said, but at least for us, part of the blizzard prep includes doing all the dishes as we go. If we lose power, we'll also lose access to hot water. So we just want to get that all taken care of right away so we don't have to worry about it. And now I'm just wrapping up some of the excess. Since all of the meals have pretty much been prepped and or baking, I am packing up the Worcestershire and the rest of the tomato paste.
The timer just went off for the cookies and the shepherd's pie is coming along beautifully. Not toasted yet on the top, but I'm gonna pull these out and put the next batch in. All right, instead of cooking the rest, I think I'm just gonna pack it up and freeze it so I can make it on another day because that first batch made 14 and I think that's plenty. Oh, and these are my compostable bags. These I swear by. Anyone who uses Ziploc bags and says that you would like a green option, look for compostable bags online. So first and foremost, here is the pièce de résistance. Look at this. So crisp, so golden. And you saw before I threw it in that it wasn't even full to the top. You can see it started to creep up. So even though it was only 2/3 full, that's actually the height in your pan that you want to fill a shepherd's pie, because the liquids will rise. Even though we try to remove as much liquid as we could, because like I said, that's just how it is. Next is the crisp, which I showed you earlier. This is just everything that we made tonight. So we have the shepherd's pie, we have the apple and pear crisp, using up the rest of the pears and the apples that we had in the house before we went shopping this morning. This was using up all of the yellow or gold potatoes that we had in the house. And here are the chocolate chip cookies. So delicious looking. I'm gonna put them like this once they cool down, but for now I'm just gonna let them get to room temp. They are spectacular. And this is enough for the two of us. We're just a house of two, so that's plenty. This is the rest of it, so that's gonna go in the freezer for a day where we want cookies, but we don't want to cook. And then this was the Worcestershire sauce I made. It doesn't look very attractive, but it smells amazing. It smells actually better than regular Worcestershire sauce. So I included it because even though it was for this recipe, I technically made it anyway. And so it's in the wrap up. All right, your girl is tired. Look at this. Makeup on her eyelids. It's been that kind of day. We're gonna eat dinner, we're gonna relax, and we're gonna see if we lose our power. We're also charging the power bank for our electronics, so hopefully if we do lose power, we'll have a few charges off of that. But I have to plug my camera in, plug my phone in, and eat dinner and relax. It's been a very, very busy day. I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning. It's 10:30 and we stayed up a little bit late to watch the storm. Let's look at the progress. So nothing crazy yet, but the wind definitely has picked up. That is our overflow firewood. Last night we threw some spare parts of the cardboard boxes that we got from BJ's. We threw it right on top to keep it from getting wet, and I think it's working really well. It's like a little case. The wind is picking up. It sounds really scary. Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
So even though this was predicted to be one of the biggest storms of the century, apparently it started dying down by 7. So that second shovel was all that we needed to get it under control. I'm moving on to make dinner for the second night. This is Saturday night, the night of the blizzard. I'm going to go ahead and make some steak sandwiches using up the rest of my homemade Worcestershire. And these are the spices for the bread that I'm going to make. So I'm just melting some butter, adding those spices and brushing it on so I can toast it and get it nice and crispy. Meanwhile, I'm just going to let the thin sliced steak marinate in that homemade Worcestershire sauce for about 30 minutes to an hour in the fridge while I prepare all of the ingredients, which really aren't that many. Besides the bread mixture, I have this cheese, which yes, it is naturally lactose free as part of the fermenting process. I'm going to go ahead and chop up some of that while I'm cooking the steak. And then I'm also going to be slow cooking an orange pepper and a yellow onion on the side. While I was cooking the steak, I pulled out the rest of the Worcestershire and I started reducing it on the pan. Meanwhile, the steak had rested and then I chopped it into very thin bits. And again, I'm just using very few dishes here. The same pan I cooked the steak in is the one I'm reducing the sauce in. And I kept the peppers and onions in a smaller pot so that they wouldn't have the space to brown too much, forcing them to caramelize slowly. That's kind of my trick to doing that. So I just roasted it on top like that. Very simple. It was not a hard dish, but it was loaded with flavor. And of course I had to put some red pepper flakes, some parsley, some oregano, and some black pepper and sea salt on top. I also realized I was missing a veggie side, so I went ahead and used up those last 2 tomatoes and roasted them in the oven while I steamed a bag of asparagus and threw on the last of the peppers and onions, just to make it a little bit more dynamic. So there are the tomatoes, and the dish just really came together pretty quickly. The reduced Worcestershire sauce was so complex, and since it had soaked with the ground beef, it was almost like I had added beef broth to it. It was amazing.
Hello, it's the next day. It is 9 a.m. on Sunday. We did not lose power. Right? Awesome. And we have about 2 feet of snow. So it's kind of all of my childhood memories coming to life all at the same time. So I have to go outside and play in the snow as a full-grown woman. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more content from me. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.
This is my impression of being a deer.